This laptop is pure magic with a soundscape and display that made both my eyes and ears weep for joy, which sounds a whole lot weirder than I actually meant it to sound. After using the Asus Zephyrus G16 as my main laptop for the past month, it has set a new standard for what thin and light laptops can be, and it made me really excited for their future. And you're about to find out all about that right here, right now, on Robeytech. I've shared this story before, but in case you missed it, the Asus Zephyrus G16 saved my bacon. It ran our live streams at Computex at 2024, it got me through some nasty bosses in Elden Ring, and it did it all on battery life. Simply put, the Zephyrus G16 has really changed the way we here at Robeytech and you should think about thin and light laptops. But is the Zephyrus the perfect portable? The monarch of mobiles? Well, it does have some of the best speakers we've ever heard on a laptop. The display is positively stunning, gaming on it is spectacular, and the battery life is on point. But opinions don't tell the whole story. By the end of this video, you're gonna know a whole lot more about the 2024 Asus Zephyrus G16 and have a better picture of whether or not this laptop is gonna be right for you. So let's get to know it just a little bit better. Measuring in at 13.94 inches or 354 millimeters wide, 9.69 inches or 246 millimeters deep, and 0.59 inches, that's right, 0.59 inches or 14.9 millimeters tall with a weight of 4.3 pounds or 1.95 kilograms, this laptop falls into the thin and light category, but it's neither thin or light on features, but it does come at a price. Now, not MacBook price, but it's definitely a price. Now, the model we're looking at here today costs $2899.99 at the time of this video. I mean, come on, there are sales and all sorts of stuff. But we did find a version of the Zephyrus G16 for $2,000, and we're gonna talk about that along the way as we talk about options. Now, for the CPU, the Zephyrus G16 has the Intel Core Ultra 9 185H processor, which is one of the reasons that we're probably as stoked as we are when it comes to battery life, etc. And this is very similar to the Core Ultra 7 155H, which the details are right here on the screen. Now, feel free to pause the video to check out the differences here, but essentially the Core Ultra 9 cranks up the speed and power ever so slightly. As for the GPU, this model of the Zephyrus G16 is equipped with an RTX 4080 mobile, while the $2,000 model we mentioned earlier has an RTX 4070 mobile. Now, if neither is enough GPU power for you, or you are a power savant, there is a model with the RTX 4090 mobile, and I can confirm it's pretty dang sweet. And I'm actually fairly sure this is the only Core Ultra version of a laptop that actually you can get a 4090. Maybe the MSI Stealth, and you'll see some details here on the screen because the editors are gonna be like, you're wrong, Robey. Now, making each one of these models even sweeter is a 16-inch QHD Plus or 1600p OLED display with a refresh rate of 240 Hz. It's also got a 0.2 millisecond response time and a color gamut that covers 100% of the DCI-P3 color spectrum. This display is also G-Sync enabled, and it's one of the prettiest displays we have ever seen on a laptop, and that includes the new 16-inch MacBook Pro, which also has an awesome display too. Asus also calls this a nebula display, like we saw on the ROG Strix G16, which you can see our review of right here. Now, while there is no mention of the blue light protection like the Strix Nebula display, OLEDs by nature emit less blue light than LCD panels, so you have fewer of those blue light assassins coming for your eyeballs. Since we're talking about display, we do need to point out the slash lighting across the back for a little touch of style. This thing has 15 pre-programmed animations, including a sonic match mode to let your Zephyrus jam out with you, and a notification mode so you never miss an incoming Slack message, which maybe I want to miss Slack messages, so maybe I'll turn it off for that. By the way, with its placement right across the back of the display, it really complements the all-aluminum CNC machine chassis. There's something about the feel of an all-aluminum laptop that we just love. Now, I will say this thing collects fingerprints like it works for a government agency, so you'll need to make sure you keep a microfiber cloth on hand. And if you don't, I will judge you severely. Now let's talk about system memory for a minute, because this is a little bit different with it being as thin and light. The Zephyrus G16 we have in front of us comes with 32 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM with speeds up to 7,467 megatransfers. It's important to point out that the RAM is soldered onto the motherboard, which is what makes it so fast. The trade-off is that you won't be able to upgrade your RAM, and if you're somebody who cares about that, then you know. But if you don't, then hey, you're good to go. This is especially important if you're looking at that $2,000 model, as it only comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is on the cusp when it comes to certain gaming. What is upgradable though is the storage. Well, sort of, it is actually, never mind, it is. But it comes with some work. The Zephyrus G16 comes standard with a 1TB NVMe SSD, as well as an additional NVMe slot for another drive. However, getting inside the Zephyrus G16 it's not as straightforward as other laptops. Now you might be asking, okay, Robey, what's so difficult about it? Well, one of the things is that there are 2 screws that are actually hidden underneath rubber tabs, and all the screws holding in the backplate have tiny hex heads on them. And even if you have the right tools, which is like a hex bit screwdriver, which is only in the large iFixit kit, not in the small iFixit kit, plus the iFixit picks and opener tools, which are only in the small iFixit kit, but not in the big iFixit kit, you're seeing what I'm getting at here, it was still difficult, scary for us to get inside. And we've taken apart countless laptops at this point. We have to give Asus some props here for providing an upgrade M.2 slot there, but we wouldn't recommend you poke at upgrading unless you have the right tools and you take the time to be patient and methodical. Now, this may not be an issue for you, but with laptop purchases like this, we always want to let you know what your options are. So I guess that's the price you pay for thinness, beauty, and speed, right? But you know what doesn't cost a dime? Slapping that like and subscribe button. So why don't you go and do that real quick, and let's get back to the laptop. Now, when it comes to external connectivity, we're gonna throw the list on the screen here as we make some comments about it. Again, pause here if you don't wanna miss anything. For starters, Asus gave the Zephyrus G16 a nice number of ports for a thin and light laptop, especially the full-size HDMI port. Bonus. What is a bit disappointing is that Asus didn't put Wi-Fi 7 into the Zephyrus G16 like they're about to with the new AMD Ryzen AI 300 series Zephyrus laptops, which may be as awesome as these ones, we just need to test them. It's not like the Core Ultra CPUs are allergic to Wi-Fi 7. The MSI Stealth 16 AI Studio, which is the competitor to this, actually does have it in there. We've harped on this before, and we know technology obviously costs extra, but this is a very premium laptop. The omission feels a bit like a miss. Now, the other thing that I'm also gonna say is a miss is that this does not, unfortunately, have a Ethernet port, so you're gonna have to do the USB-C dongle if you're gonna wanna basically use Ethernet, which was kind of a bummer, but maybe it's a thin and light thing, who knows. What thing isn't missing though is the audio system on this thing. And I know I don't talk about this a lot, and you're probably like, Robey, it's a laptop, but I don't know that we have ever used a laptop with a more amazing and absolutely full sound. Thanks to 6 speakers, including 2 subwoofers capable of hitting bass frequencies of 100 Hz, the audio experience on the Zephyrus is absolutely cinematic. It actually made us check to make sure we accidentally hadn't connected it to an actual soundbar. The audio experience even rivaled the speakers in the new MacBook Pro 16. And that's not just me saying it, that's Brian and our other MacBook folks saying it. Now, it's maybe not quite as rich in the lower end, which I do think the MacBook actually has a bit more bass, but definitely a broader and larger soundscape. For input, the keyboard and touchpad feel pretty good for a laptop keyboard. There's nothing that really kind of stood out as mind-blowingly good, or on the other side, day-ruining bad here. There were a few extra function keys above the F key row, but not as many customization options as we saw on the Strix G16. Overall, I have to say that the MSI Titan 18 still has my favorite laptop keyboard, but that's also a $5,000 laptop. What we do love about the Zephyrus G16's keyboard is that Asus actually opted for a smaller arrow key instead of shortening the right shift key. As for power, this laptop has a 90 watt-hour battery life and a 240 watt power supply. The power supply weighs 1 pound or 0.45 kilograms and measures 6.42 inches or 163 millimeters long, 2.95 inches or 75 millimeters wide, and 0.98 inches or 25 millimeters tall. For comparison, it's slightly longer but thinner than a power brick for the Core Ultra based Alienware M16R2. It's not bad, and honestly, even rivaling when you compare that to something like the MacBook may be taller, but this one's just a little bit longer. Not bad. Now, in our battery test, we got an average of 8 hours and 7 minutes out of the Zephyrus G16. Remember, this is using UI Procion's Office Productivity Battery Life benchmark, but that's not all we've seen the Zephyrus G16 do on battery life. It ran, and I know I keep harping on this, but it was amazing. It ran a whole 2-hour live stream for us in Computech, and it also gave me me over 2 hours of Elden Ring while I was getting ready for the expansion to drop. And that was the RTX 4090 version. Okay, enough gushing, it's time to talk about how the Zephyrus G16 performed at 1600p in our gaming benchmarks. Now we're gonna try something a little bit different to save you some time on the detail dump by putting our test settings on the screen as we talk about the gaming performance. We haven't changed the way we test, we're just trying a different way to basically present the info and be a little bit more courteous with your time. So let's start with Cyberpunk 2077, which really showcases ray tracing. We saw an average frame rate of 77 frames per second. In Forza Horizon 5, the Zephyrus G16 gave us an average of 140 frames per second. In Modern Warfare 3, with single-player FPS settings, the Zephyrus averaged 142 frames per second. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the Zephyrus ran an average of 148 frames per second. Next up, Tiny Tina's Wonderland, averaging 155 frames per second. Now moving on to competitive titles, Apex Legends gave us an average of 188 frames per second. We got Modern Warfare 3 for multiplayer FPS on the Zephyrus G16, averaging 194 frames per second. And finally, in Fortnite, the Zephyrus G16 averaged 206 frames per second. Now, you might be asking, Robey, can we get 240? Yeah, dude, play some Rainbow Six or play some Counter-Strike. All of those things will absolutely use the maximum frame rate. Now, on a personal note, the experience of gaming on this thing was probably one of the best that I have had in a while. And I've gamed on a lot of laptops. The only rival the Zephyrus has in this department is the MSI Titan 18HX, but that thing weighs twice as much as the Zephyrus and costs almost $2,000 more. Now moving on to thermal performance, at idle, the Core Ultra CPU rested at an average of 51 degrees Celsius. Under full CPU load, the Zephyrus G16 averaged temperatures of 91 degrees Celsius, which is warm for a laptop. Finally, in our gaming benchmarks, the Zephyrus G16 saw the Core Ultra 9 average 79 degrees Celsius, which again does feel a bit warm for a laptop, but not dangerous. So what's happening here? Well, let's talk about how the Zephyrus G16 handles heat to get a better understanding. In this laptop, Asus is using a combination of two heat sinks, a large vapor chamber that contacts the CPU, GPU, and VRMs, Thermal Grizzly's liquid metal compound to assist with contact, and dual impeller fans. In theory, this combo helps direct heat away from the keyboard and touchpad while increasing airflow to the main components. In practice, we saw the system actually take around 2 minutes to stabilize before the cooling system really kicked in. Even then, it took another 15 seconds to stabilize any thermal throttling we were seeing. What this means in our gaming charts is that heat looks much higher than it would actually be during a gaming session, considering that many of our benchmark utilities weren't hitting that 2-minute mark. Since the Zephyrus G16 has manual, silent, performance, and turbo power usage and thermal modes, we did double check to make sure we didn't have the Zephyrus in silent. This would lower the CPU power and keep the discrete GPU inactive until necessary. Now that wasn't the case. We were pushing the turbo mode for testing, which increases the power to both the GPU and the CPU for high performance applications, of course, while the laptop is plugged into an outlet. We think what's happening here is that Asus has tailored these thermal and power settings toward the thin and light laptop experience, which is what you want is silent operations. If we're right, that means that it's waiting until fans are absolutely necessary to activate. Now, if you're doing high performance compute workloads on your laptop like this, you're gonna notice some performance lag on the front end before the cooling system kicks in. The only workaround for this would be to set up a cooling and power setting all manually, which is something you could absolutely do. All of these settings are modified through Armoury Crate, Asus's one-stop shop for everything from system updates to RGB control to system management and more. It's not our favorite software from a system overhead standpoint, but it's pretty robust in the feature set. I'd really just love to get like a very thin and light version of Armoury Crate Asus, something very similar to what Corsair did in their Corsair 1. Okay, but what about the fan noise? How is the Zephyrus G16 acoustically? When we look at the numbers, we recorded the Zephyrus G16 running at 45.2 decibels while idle, but under load it hit 58.8. That's really close to what we saw with the Razer Blade 14, same idle acoustics, but the Zephyrus G16 was 1.1 decibels louder. And when you pair this quiet operation with the amazing speakers, it's such a pleasant experience. This is totally a first world problem here, but it really takes away from the user experience when your laptop sounds like a jet engine and you can hear it over no matter how loud the speakers are. Now, for comparison, the decibel levels we mentioned land the Zephyrus G16 somewhere between gentle rainfall and a quiet conversation, which we're big fans of both of those things. Now, this isn't quite MacBook whisper quiet, which, I mean, it still blows my mind what that thing is able to do, but at the same time, I mean, try gaming on a MacBook. One thing I wanted to point out is now that we've released our review of both the Asus ROG Zephyrus G16, which you're watching, and the ROG Strix G16, you guys have asked a number of questions since the review of the G16 actually went live, the Strix G16. So how do these two laptops compare? The video is coming soon, but here's the TLDR Both are amazing laptops. The Strix is a beast when it comes to raw power, but the Zephyrus is one of the best performance meets efficiency hybrids we've seen to date. We'll expand on this soon, but if your job is more about high performance compute versus just gaming, then the Strix may be a better option than looking at something like the Zephyrus. All right, I could talk about this laptop all day, but I've got to land this plane somewhere. So it's time to answer the question, do we recommend the Zephyrus G16? As always, the answer depends on what you need a laptop for. If you need a laptop for heavy CPU workloads, high performance compute, where you're very, very CPU bound, then the Zephyrus G16's Core Ultra 9 can handle them, but it's not going to be as well as the Strix G16's 14900HX. But if you're looking for a performance meets efficiency laptop with all-day battery life for work, significant power for gaming on the go, and an audio and video experience that will blow your mind, then yeah, we definitely recommend the 2024 Zephyrus G16. But that's only if you're willing to pay the price for all of those things. To be clear, the Zephyrus G16 is a luxury laptop, and you're going to pay for all the luxuries it has to offer. Are there other laptops with similar specs that cost less? And honestly, we looked and there weren't actually many. The only comparable laptop we could find that was cheaper was the Alienware X16 for $300 less. But the Alienware is also about 2 pounds heavier, it's bulkier, and we haven't been very impressed by Alienware's laptop displays as of yet. Now their monitor is pretty incredible, but come on, Alienware, let's get that stuff into the small form factor. So in our experience with it, the 2024 Asus Zephyrus G16 may be an expensive laptop, but at every turn, it gave us a reason to recommend it as one of the best thin and light laptops, if not the best laptops we have ever used. And if you're watching this and you're more of an AMD fan, the word on the street is that we are going to be seeing an AMD-based Zephyrus really, really soon. So those are our impressions of the 2024 Asus ROG Zephyrus G16 Core Ultra laptop. But we want to know what you think. What do you think about having speakers that literally blow your mind, or OLED, or what do you even think about laptops that cost at this price? Let us know all that in the comments below. Now, while you're down there, go ahead and slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this right here on Robeytech. And if you want to continue the conversation, talk more about laptops, whether Intel or AMD or whatever it is, may be the right choice for you, head on over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech, amazing place to have conversations with like-minded tech and PC enthusiasts that, you know what, you might just end up being friends with. Also, make sure to follow us on all the socials at Robeytech absolutely everywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.